this. Someone tell me before we start, what questions do you have? I'm going to write them. I will make sure that we get them. Ready? Go. Questions?
Kevin, what do I put in the listing agreement if the seller is not willing to pay out a commission?
If seller is not doing a co-op.
Co-op, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Kevin, what do I put in the purchase agreement if I have to request the commission from the seller?
Okay, perfect. Okay, what else?
Are you asking what questions do we have?
Yep.
On line 120 of the listing contract, like that 120 through 124. What are you laughing at me, Kami?
Because the only people who are talking are leadership right now, and yet everyone on here has questions.
So like that exclusive right to
Yep.
list, kind
Gotcha.
of 120 to 130 or whatever. How do we explain the difference in things?
Okay. Perfect. Got it. All right. Ready? Any other questions? Or it's
Yeah.
Okay. What questions?
So if we are gonna, let's say we have a signed buyer and you can't make a showing and you offer someone $50 to do the showing for you, do they need to sign a one-time showing agreement or something?
Okay. So buyer, non-signed buyer. Okay.
Are we allowed to do agent previews for listings without a signed buyer agreement if we're doing it for a listing?
Okay. Other questions? Haha, Chris is blurring in and out. All right, ready? Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. As we have questions, then ask them and we'll go through them. Today, I'm going to give you a little probably different information than I gave before on the section 123, 124. And the reason is for clarity. I told you that things might adjust on how we're going to do it, and that's what we're going to do on here. So I listened to some more lawyers for more clarity things on the creation of the forms, and that's what we're going to do. Can you guys all see my screen? Yes, yes, yes. All right. How about you unmute yourselves, and then you can say yes, and then I can respond without looking back and forth.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Yes. All right. So everyone's good with this part, right? Lines 1 through 14, all the same. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Going through.
Yeah.
All this the same. The same. The same. All right. This is the spot we get caught, right? Total compensation. Total compensation here, there are two things that we can do. We can do things the way that we've done them traditionally, which would say, we'll do that first. If you do it the traditional co-op brokerage way, this is how you would fill it out. Let's say you list your home for 6%. So in here, I don't charge a retainer fee. Most of you, we don't see a retainer fee, so I'm putting 0 in there. In line 119, as broker's compensation, I'm going to put 6%. Out of that 6%, whoops, I dropped down. I don't mean to drop down. 6%, or some of you have been doing different numbers in here. Some of you have put $5,000, some of you whatever that might be. Or you can put 0 in there because on this one it says whichever the selling price or 5,000, whichever is greater. Notice it does not say that on the purchase agreement. It says it here, not on the purchase agreement. Okay, so we'll look at the difference. If seller agrees to pay the compensation, we're going to skip this part. If you're doing it the way you've always done it, which is through a co-op, if you're doing a co-op, then on this, you could write 0 and you could write 0. It's going to be important to your client to understand if they write on the buyer's purchase agreement that your whatever they're adding to that is not reducing it. And the reason you're putting 0 here is because you're going down here and you're saying, I shall offer, and I'm gonna say 2.7%. This is a represented buyer. This here is a facilitator. Let's say you offer 1% to a facilitator. Okay. That's the traditional way. If you want to stay the way you've done it, you can do it this way. All right. There's other ways of doing it as well. One of the things, let's say you are gonna sign a 6% agreement. Okay. You're gonna sign a 6% agreement. I'm gonna take all these off. Oh, come on. Sorry, guys. All right, you're gonna offer 6% agreement. Or the same thing, this is gonna stay the same, except this time, I'm gonna skip down here. This time, you're not going to offer a co-op. And remember, the offering, the compensation is that front end co-op piece. Let's say you did 6%, but you want to negotiate on part of the purchase agreement. Then what you could say is, we'll negotiate that, and whatever you pay out to on the purchase agreement will reduce my amount by 2.7% of the selling price. I agree to share up to 2.7% on that purchase agreement. Whatever you're paying on the purchase agreement shall reduce my portion by that amount. Okay? Makes sense?
So that's only filled out if it's negotiated on the purchase agreement?
If it's yes. So now
How-
that's one way. Let's go ahead, Heather.
How do you know if it's gonna be negotiated on the purchase agreement?
Okay, not if it's negotiated on the purchase agreement. If you're not sharing 129, if 129 is I'm not sharing, I'm not offering compensation to cooperating brokers, then it should
Then,
be this one.
got it. So if it's the traditional, got it.
So
So
quick
now
question, quick
I'm
question,
not
Kevin.
sharing, so I'm gonna put that number up here. Yeah.
So
Oh, he said,
if you're not sharing, does that
Mhm.
mean you as the listing agent is getting 6% commission?
It does if they're not asking for anything on the purchase agreement. This is what you've negotiated as a total compensation, due to 6%. If they don't ask for anything on the purchase agreement, this is what the total compensation is to you. If they ask for something on the purchase agreement, then you're willing to reduce yours by that amount there.
Okay, so what would be the benefit of doing option 1 that you just showed us and option 2? What would the conversation look like and the benefit to seller or yourself for doing these? I mean, it's essentially, you're doing the same thing as long as it's written on the purchase agreement, right? In theory, they're getting the
Right.
same net in theory. Why would you do this differently? Why would there be 2 different options?
Yeah, one of the things on a purchase agreement, a buyer's agent might ask for 2%. So then you would, as the listing agent, would retain the same amount. Look, I list a home for 6%. I'm willing to reduce my commission by up to 2.7% if that comes on the PA. So that's one way of doing it. The way that I think this is going to be more common is the third way. And the third way says, I, as your listing agent, am going to list your house for 3.5%. Okay. Whatever you pay out, we are not offering a co-op brokerage. I'm not offering that. This is just my side. Then whatever they ask for on the purchase agreement reduces my amount by $0. This is what I think listing agents who are not doing the co-op, many of them are going to do a contract this way. Is I'm going to choose my price, what it costs me to sell, or what it costs to have my service. I'm going to put zeros in here because we're not reducing that mine at all. And I'm going to say shall not here. So do you get the three ways? Way number one is I put in the full commission, 6%, traditional 6%. These I'm going to leave as zeros because I'm going to click shall here. I'm going to offer 2.7 here. And I'm going to offer 1% to a facilitator.
Quick question on that, Kevin.
Yeah.
Way number one and way number two.
Yeah.
How are you able to market to buyers and buyer's agent? Is it different regarding compensation?
Yeah. So the first one of co-op, right? You can directly say to agents, by the way, the whole thing with getting it off the MLS is they're trying to get rid of this broad inflated price that we are setting as realtors. So the idea is we're not making all these blanketed things out anymore. And the way they did that is said, okay, we have to take that off the MLS. And so some realtors, and I would just say be careful, are trying to figure out creative ways to go around what the lawsuit's intention was, right? And when we try to go, oh, we're going to find a different way to go around what the intention was, we're going to get in trouble because lawyer like Inman just did an article with the attorney that was the head of it who said, I'm looking for people to fail so I can go after them, right? So this is they're looking for the people that are going around. So if it were me, if I were showing a house, I got this question this morning. Can we put it right on showing time and say, with the confirmation, we're offering a 3% commission? You cannot do that. You can't put it on showing time. You can send an email afterwards and say, hey, just want to let you know, we're excited that you're just showing the house. We're offering a co-op agent of 3%. You could also say, you could say something as bland as my sellers are willing to compensate buyer's agent. You're not putting an amount on it. There's a spot there that's going to allow for some negotiation on the purchase agreement. So how we market things, remember, market the house, market the things to the buyers of the house. Whereas realtors are not supposed to be motivated by that other commission anyway. That's one of the things that we were never supposed to not show a house because of the commission they were paying. And we were, that would be an ethics violation actually. So we want to make sure we're marketing the right things. And I get it. Go ahead, Bethany. We can't hear you. Where'd you go? There you go. You're not muted, Bethany, but we can't hear you talk. Is there a different speaker you can select real quick? While she's doing that, Maureen, what's your question?
Okay, so I have two questions. One is out of option one, option two, and option three, which one is the safest for us to protect ourselves to do in going into a listing agreement and going over and having that conversation with the seller? And my second question is, I see you guys have the templates already set up in transaction desk on the MLS. Is there any way to have option one, option two, and option three set up as templates already created?
Gotcha. I'll just say a team has created those and Profile has created a template in there. So if you want to create your own, I think that's okay. I would rather not do option 1, 2, and 3, and I'd rather us get so comfortable with the forms we can just go through them like there are our regular new forms. And so that's what as far as which one protects us the most, it's really just explaining it to your client. As long as there's transparency throughout the piece, sitting down with your client and say, there's some advantages to offering a co-op on the front end. When we do, I'll market it this way. I'll let everyone know what takes maybe some of that stress away. There could be an option to you to not offer it to the co-op. And let's just see it on the PA. There is a realty company that said that's the only way they're going to do it. So you guys are going to see those a lot. There's not a rule on which one is better or worse or whatever. It's we got to do it with transparency and make sure that we understand and that our clients understand.
Okay.
Maureen, would it be helpful if we set up a class where we go through the conversations with buyers and like sellers on this? To make,
Yes.
and maybe not just you, but other people, make you feel more comfortable in different scenarios and how to talk through it?
Yeah, because I'm already extremely confused on all three options. So,
Yeah.
yes.
And that's,
So-
I mean, it's fair.
So let's say you're going on a listing appointment. You want to do the things the same way. Remember what you're going to do is on here, you're going to say my total compensation is 6%. We're going to share that. So these can be zeros if it's on the purchase agreement. If you offer more than what we're going to offer in co-oping, nothing comes out of mine, because we're going to share, and we're going to share 2.7% to the listing or to the buyer's agent, 1.1% maybe to a facilitator. Remember, you guys can change your percentages because they're negotiable with your clients. All right, Bethany.
Does it work this time?
Yes.
Oh, praise the Lord. Okay. Couple thoughts. One, don't we need to put the broker admin fee in the other section above?
Yes.
So line 125 is where we would put the broker admin fee. Previous to a mastermind that I went to last week, I was 100% camp option 1 and had all my scripts down for it. And then masterminding with people from literally every company last week. I think there's actually a lot of benefit to just leaving it where you say, this is my fee for listing your home. You get to decide if you want to advertise something. There's a benefit to that because some agents and buyers might not understand that this is negotiable. However, I think there's also going to be a way that your sellers could save money by not offering it and buyers, agents putting in lower amounts, because this is, we've talked about this before, but I really believe this is going to separate people that want to pay raise and people that don't see enough value in what they do. And so if it's going to save my example, let's say we advertise a listing so well that the buyer calls their agent and says, this is the house. They might negotiate with their agent and say, like, you don't deserve 2.5% or 3% for showing me one house and negotiating the deal. Like, I have no idea what that conversation could look like, but by me locking the seller into 2.5% to 3% on a payout, when the buyer's agent might be comfortable taking 2%, I don't think it's the worst idea to go with the option of, hey, my fee to just list your home and negotiate and market and represent you is X%, which ours is going to be higher than it's been before, and then allow the buyer's agents, quite frankly, to work for themselves and figure it out. And obviously be respectful in how we communicate that, but I don't know, it really was eye-opening to me that this lack of payout and just saying, hey, we're not advertising anything if an agent calls you, but please put something in the purchase agreement if you're interested.
Which, I think I said early on, if I were predicting the future, I would say that's the way the Department of Justice wants it. That's the way that the intention kind of is let's separate these commissions. In our brokerage, you have the freedom to do the things the way we've done them through the co-op, and there's an argument that that's a great way to do it, and you have the freedom to go the other side of we're going to compensate through the purchase agreement. Make sure your clients understand they have that option, And when they say, well, what would you recommend, or why do you choose them? Then you can say a couple things. One, you might save some money if you negotiate on the part of the purchase agreement. I'm a good negotiator. My job's to make sure you get the most amount of money for your home. I am a fiduciary for you, not for them. I can negotiate that way for you. I can help on some of that. You could also make an argument that by offering that on the front end, if we don't offer compensation up front, we might not have buyers see your home. They might come in, they might be concerned that, how am I going to bring this extra money, right? So there's a way to share what are the potential of both, and you have the option to do both. I am looking forward to seeing both. I would love to see some that are just, and see how successful that is, and see some that continue the co-op and see how that is. One of the things I want us to be careful about is that we don't offer co-op, or when we do offer co-op, we're not also having the seller pay on the purchase agreement. Because this is the part that I want to, and we try to solve it the other way, but this is the way we have to do it. You guys, as realtors, have to have your eyes wide open to this. If you sign a co-op and you say, hey, I'm sharing, and then you see 2.7 or 3 or 5 or whatever they might be asking on the purchase agreement, that number does not reduce the agreement that you already decided to pay out. So you want to look and make sure how you're doing that. You have to be attentive to the details. All right, let me go through this one more time, and then we're going to go to the other side. I do co-op. I'm going to do it the traditional way that I've been doing. I'm going to do co-op. I'm going to do a retainer fee of $0. I'm going to do a compensation of 6% or $5,000, whichever greater. If a seller agrees to pay the buyer's broker, I'm going to put 0 because we're going to do co-op down here. I'm going to offer 2.7 to a buyer's agent, 1% to a facilitator, and just like Bethany said, you want to put your broker admin fee in this. Good. By the way, the compensations, things that we're talking about, they're not averages. Everything that we do is negotiable. You guys get to set that with your clients. The market center is not setting that for you. All those things that make sure we're not price fixing anything. Good. I'm going to do what Bethany said. I'm going to do just my portion. I'm going to put my 3.5% here, or $5,000. I'm going to leave this 0, because whatever you pay me, or whatever you pay on the purchase agreement, doesn't reduce what you pay me. Then this is going to be, I'm not offering. This would be not checked, not checked. All right. Put it on the purchase agreement. My client's willing to, in fact, we're not telling you, but we already talked about what we're going to share, or what we're going to put on the purchase agreement. It's my 6%. Out of that, I'm going to put out 2.7%. And we are not offering on there. This is just the purchase agreement. Matt.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep. Oh, we did hear you. There you go.
Purchase agreement, and then this. Can you scroll up just to bottom of page 3? What's that?
Right here. Matt, you're cutting in and out. We can't hear you all the time.
Yep. I don't know why I'm not moving.
Okay.
All right, just come back to me. Can you hear me now? I don't know why it's not.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so right there where other is on line from 124 after selling price, it says it has a period. So other is not a continuation of that section. Is that correct? Other is just where you would list additional fees.
Right. Right.
Okay, so, because one question I have that that section to me doesn't make a lot of sense. But when we get to the purchase agreement, which is line 405, wouldn't it make a lot more sense if it just said, line 123, compensation as specified on line 119 to 120 shall be reduced by the amount agreed upon in the purchase agreement in lines 405 to 408?
Yep. Yep. There are a lot of ways that can make that simpler.
Could you write that in other, I guess is my question?
I would like not to at this point, Matt.
Okay,
Just because they worked like all the legalese on these forms, and this is what they came. So I'd like us not to adjust too much off the form.
okay. That's it?
All right. Maureen, you still have a question? All right. Other questions about the listing agreement, specifically listing agreement?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Wondering why are people writing $5,000 in versus $0?
I don't know. I just saw it, so I thought I would put it in there. $0 works the exact same way. Here's one of the things I would say. If I take a $90,000 listing, one of my friends has like a $70,000 townhome. That's putting my minimum in there. If I would list it at 6%, I wouldn't get my $5,000. It's just if my percentage is lower than that dollar amount.
Okay, gotcha. We typically do an extra percent for any property under 200,000, so we just keep an eye on that. I was like, if people are looking at $5,000, they're gonna of course want that. So I was like, I feel like that might create conversations that we might not. It might be easier to have it as 0, but no, that makes sense. Thanks.
You bet. Yeah, because remember on this one, it's whichever is greater. Okay.
Right.
On this one, it's on whichever is greater.
Nope.
Listing
Kevin.
Go ahead.
So if we have listing agreements where they have filled out both lines 123, 124, and I don't know the other lines, 131.
Yeah, so this line, they filled out this and they said we're doing this.
Yep.
So here's what I would say to that. If we did that, the purchase agreement says both are due. So as a listing agreement, make sure, this is where I started. If you're offering cooperating compensation, make sure that that's not on your purchase agreement. It's one or the other, right? So seller, they're asking for 2%. Selling agent, buyer's agent, by the way, you don't have to ask for that because we already said we're going to cooperate with it. So that's where I would just have a listing agent. I would make sure if you have that co-op out there already, make sure what's on the purchase agreement reflects that. Make sure your sellers understand as well. And that's where you would want to then remove that off there. See, I already told you there's a compensation through the co-op form.
Okay, so if you have both sections filled out on the listing contract and you use the co-op form and the PA line 406 is blank, you're fine.
You're fine. Yep.
If you have both sections filled out and you don't use the co-op form and you write in the correct amount, 2.7 on line 406 on the purchase agreement, you're fine.
Yeah, and just I would say on that, I would just say to the seller, I would send an amendment to the seller and said, pay through PA and reduce the cooperating brokerage amount. Right? We paid this out that way. I would adjust that.
Adjust it after you receive a PA.
With your seller, make sure your seller understands how they're compensating and what portion you're putting in that. Yes.
Okay, so potentially it's not wrong to have both sections filled out.
It's not wrong. It would save a step if you don't. So if you
Okay.
put zeros in here instead, it's better.
Okay.
Yeah. Zero in
And
this part is better.
and then
If-
I just want to say something about our templates. Our
Yeah,
templates aren't going to have anything filled out in this section because we are taking complete direction from the agent based on our forms. So yes, we have templates set up and the templates are just to have the proper paperwork in there so we can move faster, but there won't be anything filled in any of these sections because every transaction is unique.
that's right. And everything is negotiable. So I like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
I like that.
So we're not going to have one that has check boxes in this section at all or anything filled in.
Perfect. Love it.
Okay.
Now you individuals, you can make templates if you want, and you can put that in there. But I love that approach of we're gonna go and we're gonna negotiate. We're gonna make sure everyone understands, and then we're gonna do that. Remember, don't just send a form without them without reviewing it with your clients. Maureen,
Can you review the three options really quick in terms of which line, what gets filled out? So like it's option one, you're offering compensation up front. You go to the listing appointment, you're doing 6%, you're
yep,
gonna offer it up front. So that in that one, lines 119 would say 6%, 120, $1,000. You leave 123 and 124 alone and just leave them blank.
you can leave them blank. You put zeros in there.
You put zero.
I
Okay,
like
which one
making
you
it
do?
clear. I like zeros. I like
Zero.
saying
So so zeros and 123 and 124, and then on line 129, you say that you shall offer compensation. 131, 133 is 27.
that's right.
So that's option one. And then option two is you're not offering it up front, you're offering it in the PA. So 119 would still say 6%.
Could still say 6%. You could say, look, this is what yep, you could still say 6%. Here you could say 3%. Let's say you said 6%.
Okay.
6%, but I'm going to, whatever you pay out is going to reduce mine up to 2.7%.
Okay, so you still 119 is 6%, 120 is still $1,000. You still put $0 in both 123 and 124 for option two?
No,
No, you don't.
nope. So that's where I'm willing
That's
to
where
pay
you're
that
making a
much.
mistake. Okay, okay, so that's saying shall reduce the amount by 2.7 on 124. This is where I'm getting confused. And then isn't it redundant then on lines 129?
So now
131.
you're not offering
No.
a broker, and then so that's this part. Doing 6%, but we're not offering co-op.
Okay, so it would say shall not on 129, but you would enter it that you're offering it on 124, only if it's in the PA.
If it's on the PA, whatever the seller agrees to pay reduces mine by that amount. up to
Okay, and then
2.7%.
option three, you're not offering it at all. You're only negotiating your own commission at your listing agreement.
Yep. And now
One
we'll
nine-
see what they ask.
119 would say like 3.3%. And then what would you do with 123 and 124 then on that option?
0 and 0. It doesn't affect me at all. When you pay them on the PA, it doesn't affect my commission at all.
0 and 0, and then 129 is shall not.
Shall not.
Okay. Oh my God. I feel like you're gonna get a lot of phone calls.
I like phone calls. And remember, if we just pause and go, okay, let me do this. If I'm just doing mine, that next spot is how much I'm going to reduce it. I'm not reducing it by anything. 0. If I put 6%, I'm negotiating for them and mine. Now it's going to reduce it by their portion, right? If I'm doing co-op, I've already said what it's going to be. Those can be blank. Good. All right. Jordan.
Yeah, I had a question with dual agency. So let's say that you were bringing the buyer, but there's
Yep.
no, the seller's not offering cooperative payout.
Yeah.
In the other section, would you ahead of time work out your fee saying, hey, if I get a signed call or to an open house, an unrepresented buyer, the fee would be this additional? Would you work that out on this form or would you do that somewhere else?
That's a good question. So sometimes, and we've seen this before, if I bring a buyer, then I reduce my commission to this, right? Here, your total commission on this is specifically this amount. So if it's 6% and you bring that buyer, like if it's shared, if there's a total for both agents and you bring that buyer, that's easy. If they're not paying out, you might want to put in here, you might have to put it on the purchase agreement, which would be clear, is, hey, I'm bringing a buyer, seller, you agree to pay this portion on the purchase agreement, dual agency, that would work. That's a good question, Jordan. I don't know the language that I would put here on 126, but that might be something I can get more thought into. What happens if we bring them and get some language that's good for that?
Thanks, Kevin.
But on the purchase agreement would be the clearest spot in the meantime, but then you would negotiate it during the purchase agreement, but versus the front end. So yeah, and which wouldn't be bad. It would be, I mean, if you could come in and say, hey, I still get paid this in the same way everyone else would versus dual agency versus co-op agency. So yeah. Alex.
Hey, so my question is similar to Jordan's in a way. So let's say I didn't put down right to sell contract. I didn't put in that other section that I would reduce my income if I bring a buyer to the table. And we went on the market yesterday, and I do have a buyer that I might have to represent both sides. Is there a way that I need to amend the listing contract, or is it just something that we just down the road, write an amendment to the purchase agreement, or how does that work?
You can always amend afterward, right? If you say, there's nothing that says, by the way, dual agency is less expensive than having two co-ops. So you know what, you have to understand, you don't have to reduce your commission. That's not something you have to do. And if you want to do that, then you can amend things at the back end. You can always amend a agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I want to go on to the next form. Can I go on to the next form real quick? Get rid of this one. I want to look at the purchase agreement. Everyone, on the purchase agreement, what I want you to show is line 406, 405, 406. And one of the things I want to kind of put a warning on this. And this is where sellers, listing agents, it's going to be important that you understand this completely and can communicate as you're negotiating this spot. So seller's contribution to buyer's broker's compensation. Seller agrees to pay buyer's broker's compensation at closing of blank percent of the selling price or blank dollars, whichever is in addition to the seller's which blank percent, comma, stop right there. This is the warning part, which is in addition to any seller's contribution to buyer's closing costs paid at closing. Okay, that's good. Then this line, this amount is in addition to the listing broker's offer of cooperating compensation. So this is where I want you to understand, if you've offered a cooperation, let's say you offered 3%, and they put 3% on this, what they're expecting per contract is 6% from your client, right? Now, they might not really mean that. They might think, oh, but in this transition time, if it's 3 there and you have that cooperating agreement that you already sent out, you've offered it, That's 6%. So just be careful and make sure that you're looking at this whole contract and that both parties understand. So if there was 3% and I had co-op already, I would say to my seller, we've already discussed that. Let me contact the buyer's agent and make sure they know what they're asking for, right? And then I would have that conversation. And it might just be clarity. Sometimes it's just clarity. Oh, I didn't mean to ask for that. And sometimes they might be asking for more than what you've offered in your co-op. So let's say you've offered 3%. For buyers, they work for 6%. Then that number in there might be something they really want. So just be aware of that as you're negotiating your contracts. Sound good? Questions about that?
Yes. How do we amend that if they have done that and they already sent the purchase agreement? How do we say, oopsie?
I do a
And-
counter offer. So remember, this is on the offer, and that's a term on the offer.
Okay.
So I would counter.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just want to confirm. Thank you.
Which again, if you're a buyer's agent and you do that, and you could have had a transaction done, but now they have to send you a counter, that's a bad thing on you. So make
Yep.
sure you, as a buyer's agent, understand if there's co-op agent or if there's co-op commission coming or not. I think more and more we're going to see this is a negotiation. I think we're going to see less and less blanketing co-op commission. We'll see. I don't know, but that's what I believe. All right. Next. I want to talk about the buyers real quick. How many of you got the touring agreement from North Star? Anyone get the touring agreement? The NAR settlement says you have to have an agreement with your client prior to showing a property. So what has happened is Zillow came out with one and said this is one. North Star came out and said this is one that works as well. If you have a exclusive buyer representation, you don't need that other touring agreement. That touring agreement allows you to have something. You need to have agency disclosure, and then that some kind of agreement that says, I'm going to show you this property, here's what it costs, and everything before you can show your property. I would say let's try not to use touring agreements. Let's go out and sit down, have consultations, and show people our value so that they want us to work for them. And then we have buyer representation and we're all good to go. Makes sense? You are not allowed to show a house if you don't have some sort of agreement in place. North Star was supplying an agreement for you to have a very minimal, I'm not your fiduciary. And on that it says, if later we enter into an agreement for, let's skip that as much as we can. Also, a one-time showing agreement is not what you want to have for your form because that's for the list, that's for the seller. And so that's not the right form for that. Excuse me. All right.
So Kevin,
let me go
sorry.
real quick. Listing agrees seller not doing co-op. We went through that form or that question. PA request commission. We went through that. Line 120, 124 list. We talked about that. Signed buyer. No. Allowed to do agent previews. Oh, are we allowed to do agent previews? Yes. If you're not, you can, as an agent, preview a house. You cannot bring a client through in any way for an agent preview. By the way, during COVID, one of the things they determined is that a video showing is a showing. So don't do that kind of stuff. Don't try to find workarounds to the rules. Kimberly, oh, do you have a question? Okay, Alex and Matt.
So my question was, and I feel I know the answer. I just want to be clear. So I have a representation agreement signed with a buyer, and I'm going out of town for a week. And if they want to see a property and I offer another agent compensation to show them properties, they need to have a showing tour form signed.
No, let's talk about this. When you sign a contract, who is the contract with?
Keller Williams.
Keller Williams. So everyone should know this. You are allowed to do showings for people within your brokerage. So if we have a representation agreement with any of our agents in our brokerage, with the brokerage, any of our agents can then show that property to them. That works for your teams. Bethany, you have a team. If you have something signed, anyone on your team can show that property. So same with if you're not officially a team, anyone in our brokerage can show any house for anyone in our brokerage.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin, just because I see there's a good, great number of people on the call, I think just to be super specific that it's our franchise. So like you can't go to Keller Williams Maple Grove, Keller Williams Edina. Those are technically different brokerages. So it has to be Keller Williams Premier Realty Lake Minnetonka.
100%. Thank you, Bethany. And you guys, we gotta, I know there's been, this rule has been kind of played with a little bit maybe in the past. We gotta make sure we don't do that. So loud and clear again, the only people that can do open houses for your listing are people from our brokerage. The only people that can show your listing with the agreement that you have are people with our brokerage, right? So that's how we just got to be careful with that. All right. Buyer, here's the buyer rep in front of us. Now remember, the only thing different on the buyer rep is you cannot accept more compensation than what's on that representation agreement. So included on that, make sure on the other line, here you're writing your broker admin fee. Good? Good. Let me show you another form that I just want to make sure that we are all aware of. And that's this. Cooperating broker compensation agreement. And Matt, Kelly, and Alex, jump in whenever you have a question. Heather, if you can just shout it while I'm doing all this. I'll pause here.
So
My question is on this form, Kevin, if you can hear me.
Yeah, on the form right in front of us?
Yeah. Yep. So on the bottom, it says broker signature. Does that mean we have to send this to you for signature every time? Because we are not brokers.
So for us, I've said you guys can sign, and a broker can delegate those pieces out. However, there have been a couple transactions already using this form, and the agent on the other side said, I want your broker to sign that. So I'm more than willing to sign it. I respond really quickly to text. If you put something in AuthentiSign, I can have it signed really, really quickly. But on the front end, as long as there's no objection from the other side, you guys are allowed to sign those. Make sense?
Yep. I'll let you cover the rest of this.
Perfect. All right.
Back to the buyer representation contract, we have noticed that agents are entering 0 on commission, and you have alerted to that in a email to everyone as well. But we are seeing that.
Okay, let me go to that because this
What do
is
you want to
let-
talk about that?
yeah, I'm just gonna pull that form up real quick. That's what buyer. Buyer exclusive representation. So one of the reasons that this lawsuit came and is transparency in payment is super important. And one of the things that had happened several years ago, we had this: don't tell people as a buyer agent you work for free, because it's not true. You don't work for free. You're getting compensated a different way, all those things. So we went through that. And sometimes people on this spot have been writing $0. In this, if you write $0 on your on your buyer representation agreement, then when you close a listing and that check comes to Heather, we'll make sure you get paid $0. Does that make sense? Because you are agreeing to, this is the amount that you're willing to get paid from your client. And if it says $0, then we'll just send that money back to the buyer and say, our agent decided to work for free. So don't do that. I don't know that we'd really do that, but don't put $0 in there. Put what you're charging your buyer to get on there. Remember also, whatever is in here, you can't get paid more than that. So even if we had great hearts and wanted to pay you, we couldn't, because you're not allowed to take more. That's what's up in your buyer rep agreement. Make sense? Turn your mutes off and everyone say yes at the same time. So yes,
Yes.
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 Good. So Kelly, if you have any of KW of our Lake Minnetonka agents that put $0 in there, please just send it back to them and say, are you sure? Right? Profile can't tell you what to put in there. But
No.
if you want to get paid, you don't want a $0 in there.
You're also causing more paperwork later, because then we're going to ask you if you want to amend it so that Kevin doesn't send your check back to your buyer. So you're just creating more work, which will then increase prices for everyone. So
Yeah,
just
and do not do that. Do not say, well, I'll put $0 in here, and then when we know what the other side's going to pay, then we'll put it in there. Do not do that. Put what your cost is going to be, and if you want to negotiate that down or up later, that's fine. But do not put $0 in that agreement. That's something that would cause a lot of problems if that happens. So do not put $0 in that agreement. That's not transparent at all. All right, back to reality. No, just kidding. Back to this co-op one. So this co-op exists only if you are doing cooperating compensation, or the other side is. So if this, by the way, is not a blanket statement, because there are questions is like line number 7. Who is the buyer? Who is the buyer? So this is something that comes right before the offer. Who is buyer's broker? Who is that? This is agreement between the two brokerages. It's not a general, I'm just throwing it out there for everyone to see. So on here, locate the property, the seller is there, but seller's broker is them, buyer is this, buyer's broker is that. You might not have, you actually should have all this information before it's signed and complete, right? Because you'll know who the buyer is, you'll know the brokerage that you're sending it to. Compensation, this is where you put what your compensation is. And then you sign it here. This should not be attached to your purchase agreement. And the reason is because in authentic, you don't want to send this to the buyer and the seller. This is between the two brokerages. So this is a co-op between the two brokerages. However, you want to make sure you understand your how you're getting paid before you submit that purchase agreement with nothing on it. So it's a ring ring. Hi, is this Jordan? Jordan, it's Kevin from Keller Williams. I'm interested in showing the listing that you have at 123 Main Street. Just curious, are you offering a cooperating a broker? Sorry, are you offering a commission to the buyer's broker? Jordan would say, yes, he is. Great. I say, Jordan, how much is that? And Jordan says,
I say 2.7.
2.7%. Fine. Fantastic. Thanks, Jordan. Say, I'm going to send you over a form just to confirm that before I send the purchase agreement over. Sound good? Thumbs up.
Sounds great.
And you know what's great about that is it's agents having conversations with agents again. It's good. It's good for our industry that we have this kind of stuff. So if I can't get a hold of Jordan before I send the purchase agreement over, I don't know. He hasn't shared with me in any way that there's a co-op broker being or compensation being paid out, then maybe I want to put that on the purchase agreement. And then if he says, hey, we're going to send you a counter because we're offering a co-op, I say, great, send me that form too, will you? Right? So I just make sure I know how I'm getting paid. This can be signed by someone representing the brokerage. As in our office, agents, you guys can sign this.
So if you spoke to them and you sent this form and they signed it and the seller is paying the 2.7%, and you sent this form over and both agents signed it, then on the PA, is it 0 on those two lines?
On the PA, then it would be 0, right? Because the seller's not offering more because we took it through through co-op.
And filled out this form that was signed by both parties.
Right. Now, for something to be, we know this through our contract class, for something to be binding, what does it have to be?
Delivered.
It has to be delivered, but before that even.
Fully signed?
It has to be written down. So it cannot be a verbal agreement. Hey, Wendy, are you paying out? Yes, I am. Great. Now I sent it over. I call Wendy and say, hey, Wendy, I thought you were paying out. Oh, no, I didn't see it written down anywhere. Right? How often do we learn in our class if it's not on the purchase agreement, if it's not written down, it's not part of the contract. We see that with personal property sometimes. We see that with different things. Nope, it's not written down. You can't show me all of those things. Good? Maureen? High five.
So real life, that conversation has been happening, and then the listing agent, not quite understanding what you just taught, is saying, we'll just put it on the purchase agreement.
Yeah.
So that is also happening, just so everyone knows.
So Kevin, so if the seller is not offering upfront,
Yep.
and on line 405 to 408, they're putting 00, and then they're protecting themselves with the co-op form because they were offering upfront. Then on the flip side, if you're filling out a purchase agreement on the buy side and the seller was not offering, so you do put in 2.7 on lines 406, then do you not need the co-op form then? Because it's already being covered at the end of that purchase agreement?
That's right. A co-op form is only when there's co-op commission being paid out.
Okay, but I mean, aren't they asking for it then on lines 406?
On 406? On 406. So this is where it's two different things. Co-op means, let's say Edina Realty is the listing agent. I'm the buyer's agent. Edina Realty is going to pay me, Keller Williams Premier Realty, that commission.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying it's just the seller on the other end. Just the seller is offering it directly. Okay, yep. That's where I got confused. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And of course I meant KWE Donna. I didn't mean the Donna Realty because,
Hey, Maureen, one thing that's helped me in differentiating if it should be on the PA or not is just think through like anything in the purchase agreement is a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. So if we're not paying out compensation and that buyer's agent wants to get paid, that's a negotiation between those two. Where the co-op is a negotiation between brokerage and brokerage. And that would, negotiations between brokers don't show up ever on the purchase agreement.
that's right. That's right. All right, let me go through these questions really quick, make sure we got no matter what we choose, add buyer potential compensation. Oh, there we go. I mean, co-host, thank you. Bethany, raise your hand. Thank you. What other ways are we allowed to share commissions to the buyer's agent? I'll jump down back. Agreed. I do believe no matter what way you choose to add buyer potential compensation in the net sheet. That's an important part. 100% on your net sheets are still vital. They're still 100% needed. And in that should be all those compensations. Should be your broker admin fee, should be your your portion of it. You should take what they owe on the house, what they're going to net, all that through a list through the net sheet. Best language to use to let agents know the seller is open to paying compensations. I think it's two ways. One is you can say it, you can put on your keys that you put in your lockbox, you can put a little tag on them that says 3%. You could do whatever you want to do on that kind of thing. Be careful that you're not trying to skirt the rule by being cute. I think there's going to be some more challenges to that. I think things are going to get tighter, not looser. I would just say that. The best way to do things is direct communication. And I think if we remember we're professionals and communicate directly, that's going to be the best way to do things. Touring agreements versus a one-time showing form. One-time showing is oftentimes on a property that's not yet listed. It's on the listing side. You're going to put it out there, show the property before it's on the market, so you can't show them. The touring agreement is between you and the buyer, and it says specifically you're not their fiduciary. You're helping them through a home. You can charge fees on that. Remember, all fees that you charge have to come through the brokerage. You can't directly get paid from a buyer, even if it's just I'm going to open the door. Everything has to come through the brokerage. Good. Thank you, Bethany. Matt, you have a question?
Real quick, and for either Kevin or Bethany, what you've heard from your masterminds, I think a lot of this makes sense when it's one seller, one buyer. Bethany, what are you hearing from other teams if these are arising with multiple offer situations, and how do we balance that with the code of ethics of our duty to assist our client to get the house when the first time home buyer at the $350,000 price range is up against 10 offers and they're already at their max of cash out of pocket? How do we make sure that we're representing them the best way to get that house, but also getting paid?
It's no different, and this is how I've been communicating it to our team and our clients. It's no different than how we have been negotiating seller paid closing costs. It's unfortunately some buyers have that disadvantage. I think that's conversations that our team's going to be talking about, that depending on our seller's price point, different strategies might be more appealing, right? Like I fully intend actually on with my sellers. So seller conversation is Mr. and Mrs. Seller, like here are your options and what each has as a pro and a con, right? Like pro is if we offer buyer compensation, that doesn't eliminate any sector of the buyer pool that might be nervous about it, or real estate agents that unfortunately just don't understand it at a high enough level. Option number 2 is we offer nothing. Pro to that is they might ask for a lot less than we would be willing to pay out. Con, some agents and buyers won't understand that and might not pursue your home, right? So that's the conversation with the sellers. Conversation with the buyers is, hey, Matt, this is no different than what we've been doing with for sale by owners for the last 13 years. This is also no different than how we've been negotiating seller paid closing costs. And the reality is we might have to bake it into the transaction and, you know, get creative. There are going to be some buyers that this makes even more challenging to getting into property. And that's a reality I think all of us need to accept. Not that we need to be okay with it, but I think we need to embrace the fact that it's going to limit our first time home buyers, the people that struggle with cash to close. But I also think this is a way that as agents, let's say you're struggling with that first time home buyer population, everyone in our office should understand MHFA down payment assistance at a high level, because if they can finance their down payment in a different way and maybe use some of their down payment cash instead to pay commission or closing costs, like there are ways we can get creative and structure things, but that's how we're going to approach it.
Yeah, I think one of the arguments on the plaintiff side, on our side, is co-op commission has made it affordable for buyers, and one of the populations that this could really hurt is those that don't have don't have the cash, first time home buyers, and also, you know, just those in a more difficulty with finances. And I would say we're in a unique spot where we're now not in such a heavy seller's market where we're getting all those multiple offers. If that were the case, I think we would have a huge challenge, in the same way that we had people offering to pay more than the appraisal was. I think we would have seen these commissions not as part of the purchase agreement. I think more buyers would have had to bring cash to closing, and or more the commission to closing, and that could have been a challenge. So I think the housing industry across is watching this to see how it does affect. If you've listened to some political speeches lately, there's a first time home buyer $25,000 idea that they'll give to first time home buyers. They know it's expensive. I think we just don't know how it's all going to play out. And co-op commissions existed for a reason, and now they're taking them away, not taking them away, but taking away the way they were done for a reason. We'll see if we find out what's right. So
one other thought really quick. This is stuff that Gary Keller's been talking about for a long time, and I believe tomorrow's team meeting is focused on mega camp. Is we're about to enter one of the greatest distributions of wealth that America has seen, with just unfortunately the passing of some people and because I think it's like 84% of America's wealth is held by this upper bracket age group. And so I think we also should really get more comfortable asking our buyers, hey, do you feel comfortable talking to your parents or your grandparents about assisting you with a down payment? And I know there's a limit, like there's different like tax limits, which I need to educate myself more on, but there's some gift options that I think actually would be worth digging into to be able to share that better with our clients.
if you we're gonna end here. If you get stuck on anything, feel free to call me. You can call a tutor of the day. I'll just say on the front end, call me, because I'll walk through it with you. If it's usually just a quick question, wait, remind me of this. And then if you screw things up, remember, or if we screw things up together, remember we can amend things. And as long as we're in good relationships with our clients and everything, we'll get through, we'll figure it out, and soon all of us will have this mastered, and then they'll say, let's change the form a little bit again. It will be great. We'll figure it out. The whole I talk with Kelly a lot, and know that as an office, we're in a pretty good spot. So you might not have the same information coming to the agents on the other side. So you might be the educator of them. walk it through with grace, say, hey, this is what my brokerage requires that we do, or whatever that might be. And then I put it on the email as well. I think there's a time when being a trainee company is super valuable, and there's some times where we just haven't been using it. But now is a time where being a training company is an awesome thing. So if you come across people across the industry and you go, hey, this person could really benefit from being with a training company like Keller Williams, remember, it's an opportunity to share, especially if they're awesome in culture and different things. It's an opportunity to share that name with Tammy, and we can help get them over here. It's a way to grow your profit tree. Mine was, I think, $478 last year, or last month. So it's a good thing. We're in it together. Let's keep moving forward. Ask if you have questions. We'll keep going then. Tammy.
Number one, I want to say thank you, Kevin, because I talk to quite a few agents per month. And these conversations are not being had at other brokerages. And with that being said, I want us to be the brokerage or the office that comes from curiosity, right? Because there are agents that are unequipped right now and have no idea what's going on with all of this and are incredibly confused. So instead of then going into a transaction with them or an interaction with them and assuming that they've been educated enough, please don't do that. Let's not be the office that is not willing to help another agent when they might have a misunderstanding, because I can guarantee there's going to be confusion for all of us along the way. And, you know, if we don't help each other out, this is an opportunity for us as licensed real estate agents to come together and actually prove our value and what we're really good at and that we're professionals. And once we start kind of separating that, that's where the issues will come in. So make sure that no matter if it's a Keller agent, if it's an agent from a different brokerage, please come from a place of curiosity with them. And be patient. Everybody is going through the same exact thing, and we don't all have the same resources. All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.